All right, welcome back to this week's video. We've got our weekly stock market update, and we're also going to talk about Tesla and their RoboTaxi event. So stay tuned to that. We're going to quickly get through the heat map. As you can see here, a little bit of green, and we've got some deep red on Tesla. We'll get to that later in the video. We've got a lot of green when it comes to Nvidia. Another one that we're seeing a lot of green is Palantir. I will make a separate video on Palantir pretty soon here. The banks did have earnings, and it looks like their numbers came out pretty well because across the board we're seeing green in the banks. We're seeing some sell-off in the utility space, and we did see some red in Google and Meta. Google, I will do some research over the next week or so. There is some more information when it comes to their DOJ lawsuit, and it sounds like the possibility of a breakup is becoming a greater possibility. So I need to do some research and see what's going on there. I still have my position in Google, and I'm just going to kind of stay tight and see what happens there. If they break it up, they break it up. So we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. And let's get to some of the economic data. This week we did have the CPI, and the CPI came in a little hotter than expected at 2.4%. The expectation was 2.3%, so a little bit warmer. And when it came to unemployment claims, that was a little higher than expected. And then this morning, the PPI came in line, came in as expected. So not a whole lot to go over there. The one thing I do want to talk about, and we're going to look at the charts, I do want to look at mortgage rates and interest rates, because this is something we talked about at the end of our last weekly market video. We are seeing mortgage rates creep back up a little bit, and we are seeing the interest rates creep back up, which to me it's a little bit of a surprise. I guess what the market is saying here is that the economy is stronger than what was expected a few weeks ago. So we had the bad jobs numbers a few weeks ago, and now we're starting to see better data. We're seeing warmer inflation, which means a stronger economy. So we could see the market is pressing the Fed to cut less or even potentially pause. So we did have the jumbo rate cut last meeting for 50 basis points, and at that time it had the feeling that the next meeting would also be 50 basis points or at least 25. Now it seems like there's a possibility of even a pause or just a 25 basis point cut. So the market is seeing a strong economy and sensing that the Fed may slow their rate cuts. To me, I am starting to position myself long in the bonds, meaning I'm long TLT or some other products that represent lower yields, because that's where we're going. The next couple of years, we're going to have lower interest rates. I really find it hard to believe that the Fed would all of a sudden turn around and start raising interest rates. There would have to be some big inflation disaster to cause that. And even then, we can't afford to have high interest rates with the amount of debt that we have. We are now spending more money on defense than on interest rates premiums than we are on defense. So long term, we can't have interest rates this high. So I am starting to find ways to express that position, and the easiest, safest way, and again, not financial advice, do your own research, would be to either buy some bonds and lock in the yields as they are creeping back up. You have an opportunity to lock in 4% yields for 10 years. Or you could buy the TLT, and if it keeps dropping, dollar cost average. But to me, this is a nice entry point here. We are still bouncing along this trend line here, and you can see we're not going to probably not getting back up here because that's when we had zero rates. But if rates can come back to 3%, we're looking at maybe 115 on the TLT, and on top of that, you are getting a 3.5% dividend yield in the TLT. So pretty interesting there. I think this is a great play, and I will look to see how next week does with the rates. But I find this to be very interesting, where we are at the beginning of a rate cut cycle, but interest rates are starting, the market is pushing rates up. That is not what the Fed wants. They want to lower rates. That's why they came out and did a jumbo 50 basis point cut. So anyways, that is some things I'm looking at. Now let's look at the S&P. I believe we did hit an all-time high again today. Yes, we did. So we are at all-time highs. Let's see, Dow Jones, all-time highs, looking good. We've got the NASDAQ almost there. So maybe this earnings season we get pushed up there. To me, what's interesting is we did hit all-time highs, and I think Apple was down today. So some of the big dogs are lagging, and if we can get those big dogs moving again, we should see all-time highs in the NASDAQ. Gold continues to move well, had a nice pullback this week and shoots right back up. We've got oil continuing to move here as well this week. So interesting stuff here. We've got Bitcoin on a nice move. It had a sell-off yesterday. Boy, this chart has got a lot on here. So we'll see if we retest this trend line here around 64. We will have to wait and see there. But let's go ahead. That is our weekly stock market. We did have Nvidia. Nvidia is pushing back up, knocking the door on all-time highs again. And that's all we'll talk about besides the belle of the ball. Let's talk about Tesla. So Tesla's down over 9% today, including the after hours. Big drop here. Let's go ahead and zoom out here. So we've been really just chopping sideways here for a long time. So ever since 2020 here, we've been going, we've had big ups, we've had big swing downs, but really we've just been chopping sideways, going nowhere. It's been a great stock to trade and accumulate on these big dips and sell calls on these peaks here. Now, it looked like we were potentially breaking out of this trend and maybe looking to push back up, but then we immediately failed. So now the question is going to be, how far do we dip down? We do have earnings coming up here in a few weeks. We've got October 23rd is going to be earnings, so that's going to be the next catalyst to look out for. So for me personally, I haven't done much here with my shares except for sell some calls, which I closed those calls out today for a nice 80% profit because we are down so much. So that helped soften the blow here. And I did open a strangle. So I sold some calls around 250, 260, and then I'm selling the 180 put. 180 for me is my next buy point on target on Tesla, my buy target on Tesla. So we'll see if we get there. If we do, I'm going to collect some premium. If we get a nice, I would assume we get a bounce out of here sometime next week. And then I will probably close these puts and wait until we get closer to the earnings date. But let's go ahead and we'll look at Twitter and we'll look at some of the pictures from last night. I did stay up and watch the event. It's always annoying when these events start late. And then this was even delayed an hour because there was a medical emergency in the crowd. But I thought this was a funny picture. You've got iRobot, which I need to go back and watch now. But you've got iRobot on the left and then last night's event on the right. Kind of funny how that looks so similar. But yesterday was the reveal of the RoboTaxi, which is a two-seater car, no steering wheel. And let's see here. Let me scroll through. I saved a bunch of videos. So this is the RoboTaxi, two-seater, no steering wheel. You get in and it takes you to your destination, and then you get out and then it goes and picks up the next person. So this was held at, I think, Universal Studios. It seemed like a great event if you were there. It wasn't too interesting to watch the YouTube stream. But I do think this is interesting. They also did announce that they're going to continue to work on releasing the RoboTaxi ability for the current vehicles. So like my Tesla has full self-driving. It's just working with the regulators like Waymo is here and getting the approval to have the Tesla be able to drive without a driver in it. So this last month or so, they did release the summon feature to where you could walk out of a grocery store and have your car drive to you without being in it. It'll summon towards you. So I think that's the beginning stage of getting the regulators, getting the public used to Teslas not having a driver inside. Because these Waymos are currently operating on the streets and they are doing passenger rides already. So the Teslas have that capability. They just haven't worked out all the kinks and worked out with the regulators how that's going to work. So I thought that was interesting last night. The other big reveal was the van, which looks so butt ugly, but I do see the point. I do see the concept, and it makes a lot of sense. Um, when you're driving around Las Vegas, instead of having thousands of these little robo taxis, if a bunch of people are going from Caesar's Palace to MGM for the fight, you can have these out there shuttling people back and forth, or at airports, or these can be used for school buses, whatever. And then they also had an army of the robots. Um, this to me was the most exciting part of last night. These things are way more advanced than I thought they were going to be. Um, and they had them all over the place. Again, that's what made this event last night so neat, where you're there, you watch Elon do the thing, and then you're in this amusement park, and you can hop in these robo taxis, and you can say, take me to this part of the park, take me to that part of the park, and then you get there, and then you have you could have the robot make you a drink. Now, my theory here is that these were not acting on their own. There's somebody somewhere wearing the hands, controlling the robots that were out there. There's no way that robot is doing that by itself. Someone is controlling it. But even then, that's pretty good. So to me, that's even more exciting, because the potential for these to be used is a lot sooner than I thought. If you can have somebody control this in another country for a lower wage than an American worker. So let's just use a California McDonald's employee. California now, you have to pay fast food workers $25 an hour. If you had a couple of these robots in the back flipping the burgers with somebody controlling them, it would be a lot more cost efficient for the restaurant to do that, and then they could hopefully pass that cost on to the consumer instead of having to raise prices, because their employees cost more and more and more. So these things were a lot more advanced than I thought they would be. They've made a ton of progress. It wasn't that long ago that when they unveiled the Robo guy, it was just a dude in a suit dancing on stage. Now we've got a legitimate robot. And where's the hand? So they've made a ton of progress here. I was blown away. Here's a video of the hand. This is just, it's no different than an actual human hand, right? It's got the ability to do everything that a human can do, movement-wise. Now it's just getting the brain to be able to work and do the same thing. So if it needed to move things, pick up things, it's really, to me, this is the neatest part about last night. Some of the other things they talked about was there was no timeline on any of this, which is typical Musk fashion. It's almost better that he didn't release a timeline, because whatever time date he would have released, it'd be a couple years after. So those were my big takeaways. I do see the potential for these robo taxis. I also see the potential for the ability of turning your own cars into robo taxis if possible. I've been taking one of my clients to the airport when I can on certain days, and so I thought yesterday, I'm like, there's a potential that I just have my car take him down the road instead of me driving him back and forth. So we're not there yet, but the Tesla vehicle has the ability to drive itself. Now, you still need to have a human there prepared, ready for if a mistake happens, but we are seeing the Waymos and other companies that are doing this without a human in it at all. And if something goes wrong, someone remotely takes over from an office somewhere if they need to. So I assume that'll be the case with the robo taxis as well. Hey, we're detecting a problem. A human's going to remotely tap in and take over the car and then steer it to safety or get it out of the problem, whatever it is. So we're just watching, what someone's experience was in the robo taxi. But overall, I thought it was better than expected. I didn't expect to see the van. I didn't expect to see the Optimus do the things that it was doing, dancing on stage, moving the way it was moving. To me, it's really interesting how well the Optimus is moving. And so I really think they're making a ton of progress there, and that, to me, that's pretty interesting. So other than that, when it comes to, this is the inside of the van, so pretty cool looking. The outside is butt ugly, but it is pretty interesting. I don't think there's a whole lot else to talk about here. So for me personally, I do think we're going to continue to see some more red. I don't know how the earnings are going to come out. I wouldn't expect, we are at 4 quarters in a row, a year of missed earnings. So it wouldn't surprise me if we have another year of missed earnings. But I do think the revenue is still going to be, hopefully record revenue is what I'm looking for. They're estimating 25 billion when it comes to the revenue. So we'll have to wait and see. That's the next catalyst. But for me, I'm holding tight here. I won't buy any more until 180 if we get down there. I do have some covered calls, just because I don't think we're going to shoot out of this. This was the big catalyst that we are looking for, to potentially move higher. Now, typically we see this, buy the rumor leading up to the event and then sell the event, sell the news. So I still think there's probably going to be a little bit more selling. I get it if you don't like it. I don't think this event changed anybody's mind. You either like Tesla going into the event or you hated Tesla going into it, and your mind is the same afterwards. So there wasn't anything that disappointed me that made me, not like the company any more or less. There wasn't anything that blew me away, but I was pretty optimistic on the Optimus. So that's my wrap up on the event. We are waiting until earnings. Their delivery numbers came in okay for the last quarter, so I don't expect their numbers to be anything too bad to the upside or to the downside, or anything too good to the upside. I think we'll probably have another quarter like we've seen for this past year, but we are in the beginning stages of a rate cutting cycle, so hopefully we can see some more vehicles moved as interest rates keep coming down. But nothing's changed with the company. I love the product. There's going to be, the other piece of this is there's the overhang of Elon jumping on stage with a potential presidential candidate that most people don't like. So that's not the best thing for the company. So I'm just really excited to get through the election and just let's move forward and get all this political nonsense behind us. So to me, that's another plus catalyst as well. I'm surprised the stock is doing as well as it has, but to me that shows it's got a more mature investor base than what it's had in the past, because everyone's entitled to their own political view, whether you agree with it or not. That doesn't change what the cars do and what the company is doing. So that's all I got. A lot of ranting from me about Tesla, but I will make a video going into earnings. So everyone have a good, safe weekend, and I will talk to you all next week. Peace out.